going to be talking about the bureaucratic mindset. Have you ever functioned under a bureaucratic policy or under a bureaucracy? I don't know about you, but I can find them really frustrating, and a lot of people find bureaucracies really frustrating. The reason is that a bureaucracy functions under the premise that a rule is a rule is a rule, and there's no flexibility. So this is a very similar mindset to the rigid mindset, in that we're looking at a diet as a bureaucracy that has no ability to adapt. So, years ago when I was talking to a friend from college, she told me a funny story about how she worked for the government, and within her department they were having an open position. So her boss came to her and asked her to apply for the position. The boss wanted her. Well, when she went online to apply, one of the check boxes she checked happened to be checked wrong. And it was a certain classification that apparently wasn't eligible for this job. So even though she checked it wrong, and she was more than eligible for the job, what happened, because she was working for a government which is bureaucratic, is she wasn't able to be eligible for the position, even though her boss wanted her, because she checked the wrong box, and a rule is a rule is a rule. She wasn't able to get the job. Everybody suffered. And it was for no reason whatsoever other than there was some rule stuck in place that said if you are checking this box, you're not eligible. It was inane. It was truly thoughtless. And it hurt everybody involved. Well, the reason diets are like bureaucratic systems is because they function under a rigid structure. So if you are going on a diet that requires that you don't eat carbohydrates, and then you happen to go to San Francisco, week 3 of your diet, and you have exposure to the world's greatest bread, by the way. If you go to San Francisco, you have to try the sourdough. Then the rule of your diet, which is no carbohydrates, can't adapt to the fact that you have exposure to the world's greatest bread. So who suffers? Everybody, because a rule is a rule is a rule. And so we're looking at it through the lens of bureaucracy. We're looking at the rigid mindset through a new lens, because it's oftentimes helpful for people to see things outside of themselves using metaphor and imagery. And most of us understand that bureaucratic functioning serves nobody. When a system gets too big to consider the individual and the individual specifications and needs, it no longer serves the individual. That's how dieting functions. You need to look at your individual needs rather than function off some externalized bureaucratic diet. For instance, if a diet tells you to eat a certain amount for breakfast, how does the diet know you haven't run 10 miles that morning, that you're training for a marathon? How does it know you don't need 3 times as much food because you've just burnt 3 times as many calories? How does the diet know that you're not sick that morning and you actually need less food? How does the diet know that maybe you need a certain type of food because your body hasn't had exposure to that and it needs it? So maybe you need protein and the diet has you eating carbs. Maybe you need carbs and the diet has you eating protein. Again, it's a one-size-fits-all rule, and it doesn't look at what you need, when you need it, how you need it. Therefore, you can only function like that for so long without becoming so frustrated and without it becoming so difficult, because it doesn't meet your individualistic needs. Diets are like bureaucracies. Diets don't function for you. They're just a big set of rules that somebody or someone came up with in order to sell some book, in order to get some money, in order to teach what maybe worked for them, perhaps well-meaning, but it doesn't function for the individual. So avoid working around bureaucratic things and start looking for your own individual needs through intuitive eating and mindfulness, both of which I talk about in the book.